Superman.
Great guy. Hey, buddy, eyes up here.
The narrative begins at a point of extreme vulnerability for the Man of Steel, a Superman lying almost defeated in desolate, icy Antarctica. It's a setting that drastically contrasts with the invulnerable image the world has of him. Blood drips from his nose, his breath is ragged, and the brutal fight he just endured has left him on the brink of death. The rawness of the scene is palpable. A hero, a god to many, reduced to a fragile figure in an unforgiving environment. Amidst the freezing blizzard, a silhouette materializes, dispelling the despair. It's Krypto, his loyal and beautiful superdog, who, oblivious to the gravity of his master's situation, jumps on him with his tail wagging, offering a moment of pure innocence and devotion. With the little strength he has left, Superman begs his faithful companion to take him home. The icy surface suddenly opens, revealing the majestic fortress of Solitude. This crystal bastion, with the unmistakable S etched into its door, emerges as a technological and spiritual sanctuary. Immediately, Superman's robots rush to assist him. Their automatism contrasts with the hero's humanity. Despite Superman thanking them, the robots coldly inform him that they lack consciousness and their sole function is to serve. His gratitude therefore holds no meaning for them, a subtle reminder of the inherent solitude of his existence as the last son of Krypton. To help him calm down and accelerate his recovery, the robots activate a projection, a message from his biological parents, Jor-El and Lara. In the recording, his parents explain the desperate act of sending him from the dying planet Krypton to Earth to save him, imbuing him with a love that transcends heaven and earth, and placing all their hopes in him. However, the transmission abruptly cuts out. Only half of the message survived the arduous journey to Earth, the rest lost or damaged. The robots diagnose him with 14 broken bones, in addition to kidney, liver, and bladder damage. He desperately needs a large dose of solar radiation to heal completely, so they take him directly under the sunlight, a vital process for the recovery of his extraordinary powers. As Superman recovers, the narrative introduces us to Angela Spaya, a metahuman serving Lex Luthor. Angela is tracking Superman in Antarctica, but radios her team that, for now, she cannot locate him. Luthor's presence in the plot already looms like a shadow, anticipating the intrigue and adversity to come. Still at 85% recovery, Superman, disregarding his robot's warnings, insists on returning to action. His determination is unwavering, driven by a sense of duty that goes beyond his own safety. At the same time, we witness the machinations of Lex Luthor, who leads his team with a single objective: to bring down Superman. It's in this context that the enigmatic Hammer of Boravia appears, delivering a brutal blow to Superman, leaving him on the ground, totally defenseless. The precision of the attack is alarming, as if the adversary knew Superman's every move in advance. At this critical moment, a civilian, Malik Ali, who once shared a meal with Superman, runs to help him to his feet. However, Luthor immediately locates the civilian, revealing the extent of his surveillance. Angela, meanwhile, tracks Superman to the Fortress of Solitude, catching a brief glimpse before the hero disappears. Luthor, from the comfort of his office, observes everything through a network of cameras he has strategically installed, demonstrating his ability to manipulate information and events. The Hammer of Boravia proclaims that this will be Superman's final fight, and the crowd, seeing him on the ground, begins to mock him. The plot becomes more complex as it's revealed that the Hammer of Boravia is not who he claims to be. He is a powerful robot named Ultraman, who has been impersonating the Hammer of Boravia to deceive the public. Luthor explains that Ultraman has spent decades meticulously studying Superman's every move. Back in Metropolis, Clark Kent returns to his job as a journalist. He receives a warm call from his adoptive parents, reminding him of their love and asking him not to forget them. Clark's brevity in the conversation, though understandable given the pressure he faces, suggests a tension between his two lives. Lois Lane appears, playfully joking with Clark, her usual lighthearted demeanor contrasting with the seriousness of the events around them. News reports state that Vassal, the president of Boravia, publicly denies any connection between his country and the Hammer of Boravia. Clark mentions his numerous interviews with Superman, while news broadcasts show how public opinion has started to turn against the hero. At Luthor Corp, Lex Luthor gathers a group of business elites, introducing them to Ultraman and a squad of Raptors, superpowered beings created to eliminate extraterrestrial threats. Luthor tries to convince them to invest in his metahumans, arguing that Superman is a potential threat. However, the representatives object, pointing out that Superman has prevented a war and remains popular. Luthor insists on Superman's danger, though he admits to having no solid proof. which leads the representatives to refuse to take drastic measures. Lois and Clark, after 3 months without a date, finally have their night out. They discuss the recent chaos surrounding the Hammer of Boravia. Superman asks Lois for an interview, which she accepts. The recording begins, and Lois gets straight to the point, asking about the pressure he's been receiving. She notes that even the Secretary of Defense has announced an investigation into his actions in Boravia. Superman explains his intervention in Jarampa and his conversation with the president of Moravia, but refuses to share details, claiming it's private. Clark responds that he acted because he's convinced the Boravian government harbors shady intentions. Lois asks if he at least asked permission to enter Boravian airspace, and Superman admits he didn't. He states he acted solely on his own, doing what he believed was right, as many lives were at stake. Lois tells him she's received a lot of social media criticism due to the situation, but Superman replies he doesn't have time for social media. Superman confides in Lois about his biological parents, revealing he's from Krypton, a planet that no longer exists, annihilated along with its history, culture, and everything he ever loved. He shares how his parents sent him to Earth to save him and give him the opportunity to serve humanity. Lois confesses that a large part of the public suspects he's on Earth for some shady or secret reason, which completely angers Clark. Frustrated, Lois admits she more or less expected this conversation wouldn't go well, and says relationships have never been her strong suit. Hearing that, Clark decides to leave without a word, walking away and leaving Lois alone in her thoughts. This moment underscores Superman's difficulty in reconciling his Kryptonian identity with his role as Earth's protector, and the pressure he feels to be transparent while protecting his origins. Meanwhile, in Antarctica, Luthor and his team arrive at Superman's ice fortress. Surprisingly, Luthor manages to activate and fully invade the place, even though Angela has no idea how he did it, as it's supposed to only open with Superman's DNA. With his superhumans, Luthor annihilates all the robots in his path, with Angela being of great help. Krypto appears but is merely covered and pushed aside, given no real prominence. The true reason for Luthor's presence is to unearth incriminating evidence against Superman. Simultaneously, Otis, a member of the Luthor Corp team, arrives in Metropolis carrying a box with something dangerous inside. The plan is to unleash it and keep Superman distracted, while crucial information is extracted from his fortress. Back with Angela, she's busy working to recover the rest of the damaged message from Superman's parents, finally managing to reconstruct it after a great effort. In Metropolis, Otis unleashes the small creature, which quickly grows into a giant beast. Superman rushes to save a dog about to be crushed. Lois watches the chaos unfold on the news. Suddenly, the Justice League bursts onto the scene, with Hawkgirl, Green Lantern, and Mr. Terrific in the lineup. Together, they manage to take down the monster. Just as the enormous creature is about to collapse and crush the crowd, Superman intervenes to ensure everyone gets out safely. Yet, even after this heroic act, no one applauds. News outlets have been spreading stories that Superman is actually a menace, sowing distrust in the public. News reports confirm that fortunately there were no casualties, but public perception of Superman remains negative. It's revealed that the full message from his parents, supposedly recovered by Angela and analyzed by 28 of the world's best linguists, contains an alarming translation. In it, his parents say they love him, that Krypton is gone forever, but hope rests in him because Earth is the best place for him. However, they also state that the people of Earth are simple, confused, and weak-minded. Therefore, as the last son of Krypton, he must eliminate anyone who cannot serve him and honor his legacy by ruling mercilessly. This revelation is devastating. Luthor seizes the opportunity to publicly declare that Superman is subjugating humanity and paving the way for his descendants to take over Earth, something Luthor swears he will never allow. Superman wanders the streets, heartbroken, as people hurl insults and accusations at him. Finally, he retreats to a room where Green Lantern appears, ready to confront him, convinced after hearing Superman's parents' message that Superman is indeed a threat. But Superman insists he never heard the complete message because the second half was damaged en route. Just then, Mr. Terrific intervenes, telling him that the forensic department wouldn't have certified the message as authentic if there had been the slightest doubt. So, there's no way it's fake. Hearing that, Superman decides to return directly to the Fortress of Ice, convinced it's the only place the original recording could have come from. Meanwhile, representatives from different countries gather for an emergency summit to debate whether Superman is truly a threat to the planet. On the news, the president of Boravia appears, claiming that Superman only intervened in Boravia's invasion of Jarampa to enslave its people and keep them under his control. After finishing the interview, the president returns to his office and slips through a secret portal that leads directly to Luthor. The president is animated, thinking they've successfully taken Superman out of the game thanks to the supposedly false message Luthor fabricated. But Luthor corrects him, explaining that the message is actually true. He tells him that taking down Superman was ridiculously easy, and part of the reason was due to Superman's own parents. When Superman arrives at his fortress and finds it completely destroyed, he encounters one of his robots, F, who admits he did his best to protect it, but couldn't complete his mission. Just after saying that, he shuts down in Superman's arms, leaving him visibly affected. Soon after, Superman realizes Krypto is missing. Determined, he heads directly to Luthor Corp to demand that Luthor tell him where Krypto is. But Luthor swears he has no idea what Superman is talking about. As the two argue, Eve, Luthor's girlfriend, secretly films them and streams the entire conversation live. At the same time, news outlets begin showing footage of Peacemaker, who seizes the opportunity to rant about Superman. Completely broken, Superman appears at Lois's apartment. She's surprised and casually mentions she didn't even know he had a dog, then sweetly offers him a cup of hot chocolate. Superman finally opens up and tells her that the ship he was sent in was damaged on the way to Earth, and he'd only been able to hear the first half of his parents' recording. Lois, trying to support him, tells him she believes him, but also points out that one of his biggest flaws is blindly trusting everyone and assuming all humans are good-hearted. Superman whispers that he loves her, and the two say goodbye, marking a moment of deep emotional connection amidst the adversity. The next day, Superman surrenders to Luthor's soldiers, who immediately throw him to the ground and mercilessly beat him. After that, he's put on a ship and taken to one of Luthor's secret desert bases. Once there, a squad of raptors escorts him to a pocket universe, which Luthor created by opening a small rift between the two worlds, accessible via multiple portals scattered across the planet. Finally, they arrive at a hidden prison where Luthor keeps all kinds of people locked up on Baravia's orders. Among the prisoners are troublemakers, inconvenient political figures, and even some of Luthor's ex-girlfriends. He's even imprisoned a woman whose only crime was writing a bitter breakup blog about him. Superman is then thrown into a cell with Rex, a shapeshifter who can transform his body however he wants. Luthor orders Rex to transform one of his hands into kryptonite, the only thing that can weaken Superman. Rex has no choice but to obey because Luthor has his son captive in a cell within the same prison. Luthor's morality is further revealed as perverse, torturing innocents to control the powerful. Meanwhile, back at the newspaper office, Lois is investigating why Luthor Corp is meddling in Baravian affairs. During her search, she stumbles upon something alarming. Luthor Corp had been selling weapons to Baravia at ridiculously low prices. Just then, Jimmy, her colleague, appears and tells her that, thanks to a contact, he discovered that Superman is trapped in a pocket universe. Inside that pocket universe, Luthor appears before Superman and drops the bombshell that they have Krypto under their control. Luthor tells him that the dog will remain locked up, be examined and investigated, and eventually be sacrificed forever, but not before going through a lot of pain. Meanwhile, Jimmy meets with Eve, Luthor's girlfriend, who is secretly giving him information. Jimmy presses her about what Luthor is really planning, but Eve says she honestly doesn't know for sure. Still, she promises to investigate further as long as Jimmy agrees to go on a date with her. Before leaving, Eve confesses, clearly distraught, that Luthor tortured a dog the day before. And he's not done with it yet because he's busy bragging about having all his ex-girlfriends locked up in his private prison. Luthor's depravity is confirmed, his obsession with control and revenge extending even to his personal relationships. In the pocket universe, Superman, weak and in pain, tries to reason with Rex. He tells him that if Rex got rid of the kryptonite, he could help rescue his son, the little shapeshifter. But Rex becomes agitated and enraged. Instead of helping, he pushes the kryptonite even closer to Superman, leaving him writhing in agony. At the same time, Lois meets with the Justice League, determined to find Superman and get him out of there. Mr. Terrific manages to track Superman's location thanks to the nanosensors he had secretly implanted in Superman's bloodstream earlier. He tells the team that Superman is in an abandoned military base, and although the signal cuts out there, he confirms that Superman is trapped in a pocket universe. But Green Lantern and Hawkgirl aren't exactly eager to join the rescue mission. Both say they don't want to fight to save Superman. Lois, visibly angry, says goodbye with a dose of sarcasm, taking a jab at Green Lantern by telling him his haircut doesn't suit him. As she's about to storm out, Mr. Terrific follows her and assures her he'll accompany her on the mission. Lois's loyalty and commitment stand out in this moment. Meanwhile, Vassal and Luthor bring Malik Ali to the prison. the civilian who once helped Superman by giving him food and helping him to his feet when he was injured. Luthor plans to use Malik as leverage to force Superman to answer all the questions they have prepared for him. In the midst of his torment, Superman begs Luthor not to hurt Malik. But when they start questioning him about possible accomplices, Superman insists he's working alone. His captors don't believe him and without hesitation shoot Malik in the head. The brutality of Luthor and his allies is shocking, demonstrating their absolute lack of empathy. At the same time, Mr. Terrific and Lois finally arrive at the secret base where Superman is held, ready to do everything possible to rescue him. Mr. Terrific detects signals that Superman is nearby, and without a second thought, begins taking down anyone who stands in his way, protecting Lois with an energy field. Once he clears the path, the two continue to advance and finally reach a tent containing the entrance to the pocket universe. There, Mr. Terrific explains to Lois how dangerous it is to create a pocket universe, as it could trigger a black hole and tear space apart every time someone enters or exits. Without wasting time, he begins to decipher the code to open the portal to that universe. In the cell, Rex is completely devastated that he couldn't save the civilian who died right in front of him. Mustering his courage, he asks Superman if he could get to his son and rescue him. Superman nods firmly, and it's then that Rex decides to dissolve the kryptonite he's been holding so it stops hurting and weakening him. It's then that Superman explains he's in bad shape because he hasn't received sunlight. He tells Rex he needs to absorb radiation from Earth's yellow sun to regain his strength. That's the source of all his powers. Meanwhile, Mr. Terrific and Lois finally manage to decipher the code to enter the pocket universe and step through the portal. Once inside, they come face to face with a river of antiprotons blocking their way. If they tried to cross it, they'd be vaporized in seconds and would never reach Superman. Back in the cell where Superman is still imprisoned, Rex explains that, although he cannot create a real sun, he can improvise something similar by mixing various substances his body produces. When Superman is fully recovered, he immediately flies to Rex's son's cell and takes him out, reuniting the baby with his father. Together, they set out to find Krypto. Just as they are about to escape, they are ambushed and pushed directly towards the river of antiprotons. At that moment, Krypto bravely jumps in to help. At the most critical moment, Superman is about to be absorbed by a black hole and desperately shouts Krypto's name. Rex also rushes to help, and thanks to their efforts and Superman's powerful breath, they manage to get to safety. Mr. Terrific finds them and jumps in to help them escape, pulling everyone out just before the portal closes forever. After the escape, Superman and Lois reunite. Although Superman is still weak, he tells Lois that there are more people who still need to be saved. Hearing this, Mr. Terrific offers his ship so he can travel safely. Meanwhile, Eve contacts Jimmy and tells him she has all the information they need to bring Luthor down. But before handing it over, she makes Jimmy promise to go on a date with her on Saturday, just the two of them. But then, out of nowhere, Luthor appears, snatches Eve, and although she manages to send some files, it turns out everything she transmitted were provocative selfies of herself. Later, Lois goes with Superman to visit Clark's parents. Not long after, Jimmy contacts Lois to tell her about Eve and sends her the photos. To everyone's surprise, hidden in the background of those selfies are crucial data files belonging to Luthor, which actually turn out to be super important. Eve's cleverness in disguising vital information in a seemingly frivolous format demonstrates her ingenuity and her courage in betraying Luthor. Meanwhile, Luthor prepares to reopen the portal to the pocket universe. Although doing so could open a three-dimensional fissure, the possibility of such a massive catastrophe doesn't affect Luthor at all. He goes ahead and activates the fissure, demonstrating exactly why creating a pocket universe is always a terrible idea. The next day, Superman's father, Jonathan Kent, tells him that Lois is a good woman and that he's noticed Clark has been different lately. Superman admits he feels terrible because his biological parents sent him here to kill. But Jonathan Kent tells him that parents don't decide what their children want to be. It's their choices and actions that make him the man he is. And today, Jonathan says he couldn't be prouder of him. They share a hug. This moment is crucial for Superman's identity redefinition, reaffirming that his values and decisions define him, not his origin. Meanwhile, Green Lantern is watching the news about the war raging in Boravia. Superman also sees it and learns that the children of Boravia are asking for his help, so he's ready to go there. But Terrific intervenes and tells Superman about the fissure, saying he has to deal with that first because it could wipe out the entire Earth. Later, Jimmy and Lois brief Perry, the head of the news communications department. They explain that Luthor is pulling all these strings because he wants to keep half of Jarenpor for himself, and that he's plotting to crown himself king. He's even in cahoots with the president of Moravia, Vassal, who created the fissure specifically to distract Superman and prevent him from intervening during the war. Mr. Terrific can't stop the fissure, nor can the Luthor Corp team, because Luthor flatly refuses to. So they end up pulling the ship out of the building. Mr. Terrific explains that there's a code that can close the fissure, and it's stored at Luthor Corp. But before Superman can go get it, he has to find Krypto, whom he'd taken for a walk so the dog wouldn't go around killing his parents' cows. Then Ultraman appears and drags Superman to a football stadium where they end up fighting alongside the metahuman Angela. Luthor orders Angela to fill Superman's lungs with air, and she does so as Luthor watches. With Superman literally on the verge of death, Vassal is sent to start the war. Superman's body is plagued with nanites, and Luthor tells Angela to finish injecting them completely. Superman rises as high as he can, even leaving the planet. And when he can't go any further, they fall at full speed. It's a fall Angela couldn't even survive due to the impact. But when they land, Superman is still alive and manages to expel all the nanites from his body. Luthor then sends the Raptors because they realize Angela is somehow still alive, though barely standing. And Ultraman has also survived. It's then that Ultraman's mask falls off and Superman realizes he's been cloned. Luthor had dug through the debris left after Superman's battles and found a single hair that he used to create the clone. That's how Ultraman was able to open Superman's Fortress of Solitude, because he has his DNA. But the clone turned out to be defective. He's clumsier than Superman, easier to control, though physically stronger. So Luthor orders Ultraman to hit Superman with everything he's got, trying to prove that intelligence trumps brute force. Elsewhere, we see a small child praying for Superman to come save them from the war. Superman tells Luthor that no matter what he does, he won't win. And his plans in Moravia are doomed to fail because he's called some friends. It turns out he sent the Justice League, who arrived to help stop the war alongside Rex and his baby. Meanwhile, Perry says they're ready to publish the whole truth, as Jimmy and Lois now know everything Luthor has been doing. That he's been instigating the war just to have an excuse to kill Superman. Luthor wants Superman dead because, as he admits, Superman is supposedly destroying everyone. And deep down, Luthor is consumed by envy, a feeling that has driven him throughout this nefarious plot. Superman, even as he's being beaten, smiles and declares that mind overcomes force. Then he calls Krypto. Once Superman frees himself from his clone, he sends Krypto to collect the spheres, which were actually surveillance cameras Luthor had placed. Just then, the Raptors also appear, and Superman prepares to face them. After taking down the Raptors, the clone returns for more, trying to keep hitting him. But this time, Superman fights back with even more force and sends the clone flying directly into a black hole, eliminating this distorted threat of his own image. Then, he heads with Mr. Terrific to close the fissure, and they arrive at Luthor Corp. Superman declares that he is as human as anyone else, that he knows how to love, and that he also has fear. He says that every day when he wakes up, he puts one foot in front of the other and keeps going, and that he makes many mistakes because that's what being human is about. He says he hopes that one day Luthor will understand that. But Luthor replies that he doesn't care because the governments have given him the green light to kill Superman. It is then that Krypto intervenes and begins to give Luthor a serious beating. Meanwhile, Lois and the rest of the team observe how everything unfolds, and they see how the fissure finally closes thanks to Mr. Terrific, who deciphered the code. Krypto's intervention, often underestimated, is crucial at this moment, reminding us that even at the height of his power, Superman is not alone. On the news, everything comes to light about Luthor, his secret collusion with Vassal and the government of Moravia. Now the whole world knows that Luthor is a traitor. It is revealed that the whole world had turned against Superman, but now everyone realizes that they owe him an apology. Superman is and always will be the hero they believed in from the beginning. Luthor is arrested, and all the prisoners he held, including his ex-girlfriends, are released. Eve reunites with Jimmy, and later, Lois meets Superman. She goes to interview him somewhere private, but it's actually just an excuse to kiss. In the end, Lois tells Superman that she loves him too, solidifying their relationship and providing a moment of joy and hope. Afterward, Superman returns to his Fortress of Solitude, where his robots have fixed everything and even repaired themselves. A little later, his cousin Supergirl appears. It turns out she's Krypto's true owner and loves to party on other planets, as their Kryptonian metabolism prevents them from getting drunk under yellow suns. That's why she prefers to travel to worlds with red suns. Now Superman prepares to relax, watching a message from his human parents, recalling all his memories and feeling truly happy. Superman's story, then, is a continuous cycle of challenge, sacrifice, and redemption, a reminder that even the greatest heroes face doubts and adversities.